Hey, what's up guys? My name is Mona and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we're going to kind of just do a quick talk on the overall state of the market, which it's been crazy these past 2 weeks. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of fluctuations. Everything just feels like it's hanging on by a thread. Literally every little Trump tweet that's been coming out has been blowing the market up and down. We're going to talk about it though. We'll give our thoughts. We'll look at different things and just kind of give you reminders as to kind of what's going on, things to look forward to, and what we're kind of doing with all this information. Okay. If that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. So market's been pretty crazy right now. The big thing, we're going to let Nick Diaz let us know.
One comment, man. One comment.
No, don't be scared, homie.
Don't be scared, homie. Like right now is the time to be jumping on, especially these past few weeks. A lot of crazy dips, especially with pretty much anything, right? Specifically, more so than anything, though, these alts. A lot of these alts have been getting wrecked. Specifically, the top alts, they did go down quite a bit, as well as Bitcoin, but not that much. I mean, 10, 15, 20%, not that big of a deal in our world. What did go down quite significantly, a lot of these more bigger alts, a lot of these mid caps, a lot of these tiny alts, although realistically may not be the best time for that, but we'll talk about it. We'll look at different things. So let's start getting to this thing. So the biggest news overall, especially these past few weeks, has been freaking gold, right? Gold has been on a parabolic run, which is kind of weird to say with gold. Anything Tradfi related, especially in comparison to crypto, it tends to lag a lot. Extreme run, right? Extreme FOMO. I'm sure you guys have seen like the videos and all the pictures of people literally lining up to pay these crazy prices for gold. Okay, and this is something that kind of people tend to forget, like, everything's topped. It's not going to happen. We continue to see is that that's when people want to get in. Once that FOMO is hitting, again, they weren't too interested in it 6 months ago when it was 3,300, or even before that when it was 2,500, 2,200. This is when they want to buy. Once it hits nearly $4,400 and it goes on a freaking parabolic run, this is when they want to come in. This is when we start seeing these types of videos, okay? And it's going to be the same thing with crypto eventually down the road. How far down the road, though, we have no idea. But again, we're looking at indicators and we're looking at clues to kind of tell us. Now, ultimately, though, gold has been going down quite a bit. It's down to 4,100. Again, a peak just a few days ago. It did do this weird little double top thing of near 4,370, 4,380. So is it going to go down from here? Who knows? Maybe it continues to go back up. We go to 4,500, 4,700, 5,000. Either way, what do you think's likely to happen here, right? Most likely a rotation into something else. Will it be crypto? Maybe. Will it be something more stable, such as stocks and stuff? Also maybe. Or will people just continue to go into gold just because of the whole debasement theory with fiat, not just in the US, but pretty much worldwide, right? Realistically, that's probably the biggest catalyst here. And although, yes, we're bullish and we're looking for potential rotation into crypto or Bitcoin, something of that sort, I do have to say it is a little bit concerning, right? For us to go up this drastically in such a small amount of time with something that is as stable as gold, okay? You can see here on a 5-year chart just how drastic this run-up has been, especially most recently. Okay, so that is something for a cause of concern, right? Just we're gonna have to wait to see how it plays out, okay? But when I see things like that, it should kind of open your eyes, especially with people saying that, oh, this is gonna be a very long extended cycle that we may go into mid 2026. I'm not sure about that, right? So just something to consider there. Another reason we're kind of highlighting the gold is that if we do get some rotation into Bitcoin, it doesn't take a whole lot to have a massive effect on things. Okay, so we'll just briefly read the topics up here. So from this coming from the blog, gold on track for biggest one-day slide in 5 years as Bitcoin draws rotation flows. Again, that's what they're kind of hoping for. This is where it gets kind of staggering. So the BTC gold ratio has dropped roughly 30% since mid-August, marking its lowest level since April amid a prolonged stretch of gold outperformance. The second part, this is where it's pretty nuts. Analysts say even a 2% reallocation of gold's $17 trillion market could lift Bitcoin above 160 as risk appetite returns. So again, even just 2% rotating into Bitcoin can have that much of an effect. Okay, just something to kind of ponder. Even more staggering as we kind of go down. Only a 3 to 4% rotation would be enough to double Bitcoin from its current price. Insane. So is that going to happen? I figure we'll get maybe at least some, maybe even just a single percent. That's kind of a big deal, right? But we're going to have to see what continues to happen with gold. Is it going to continue this parabolic run, or is it going to start to consolidate a little bit or even go down further? We're going to have to wait and see. Okay, but that's one of the big highlights, is that pretty much everything else is pumping with the exception of Bitcoin. Is Bitcoin and crypto eventually going to catch up? I personally believe so. Okay, so gold is the highlight right now, but as we look at stocks, same story, right? S&P and NASDAQ just continually breaking new all-time highs. Another big thing to be bullish on, aside from potential rotations from these things into crypto, is, again, if you guys remember, we do have a Fed rate cut here coming up pretty soon, most likely, not guaranteed, but when it's at like 96.7% odds, it's looking pretty good, and this is going to be in a little over a week. Okay, so this is another thing that has us extremely bullish. Another thing to consider is a lot of these ETF approvals for a lot of these altcoins were delayed with this government shutdown. Okay, so once things pick back up, whether it's in the next week or two, sometime the first week of November, which is probably where it's going to be at, expect these announcements of ETF approvals to start coming through. Okay, there's been murmurs of some of them with Solana. I think 21 shares. One of the others that supposedly it already got approved is just because of this government shutdown. They haven't been able to make the formal announcement. So just yet another potential catalyst kind of all at once. Okay, so definitely some things to look forward to. At the same time, though, there's other things that kind of have us a little bit bearish, and that's what's causing a lot of the current price action right now. Okay, so currently we did pump up a little bit, just because ultimately we did go back to like 107, just because we had some tweets coming from Trump regarding more tariffs with China. Obviously, more turmoil also with a lot of the conflicts going on. Government shutdown going on. There's a lot of things that can really have a drastic swing on the price, right? And we've kind of just been seeing it, right? It's been reacting to every little bit of news. It's been going up and down. It's been all over the place, right? Realistically, you got to look at the longer term picture, and we have to wait to see some of those resolutions on some of those conflicts and some of those issues. Okay, we'll talk about a few of those right now in a second. Let's look at some of the other indicators currently. These are things that we are looking at. So the overall crypto market cap still kind of hovering, even with this dip, in that same range, right? We've been hovering like 3.7 to 4 trillion for quite a while now. Ultimately, we were hovering quite strongly over 4. It was looking pretty good until this most recent dump here these past few weeks, and we're essentially back to the levels from last month. Okay, so we're at 3.79 trillion, so no real big concern there. The fear and greed is pumping up. It went down to, didn't go down to extreme fear from what I saw. I think it went down to 26 was the lowest. It's currently up to the higher end of fear. It's at 33. Altcoin season index did go down quite significantly, and again, it's because of those alts getting extremely wrecked, right? Especially those smaller cap. They're continuing to get wrecked. Another big thing we like to look at is the Bitcoin dominance, and overall it has been kind of hovering in the same range, right? It's been between 58 and 59% for quite some time. When that'll change, we don't know, but again, it's all within that same range. So realistically, not a whole lot has changed on the upper end, right? Most of the change has been a lot of these like mid to smaller cap alts just getting, in some cases, pretty annihilated, right? Which is giving us room for what? For more opportunity, right? And that's kind of the title of the video. That when things look like this, when there's blood in the streets, this is the time to take advantage. Obviously, depending on your scenario or your game plan or what you're trying to do, this is where you have to come up with your strategy, kind of execute, right? Do you want to add more to your long-term bags? Are you looking for short-term plays? This is where things you should already kind of be decided on and kind of acting on it, right? Because again, a lot of these small news events in the short term are creating a lot of volatility, and they're creating opportunity, right? The most recent thing is with this whole thing with Trump, whether he's going to have this meeting with Xi or not, and all these tariffs, and it's ridiculous, right? So even just right now, again, today's October 21st, just a little over an hour ago, he made a remark saying, obviously, things weren't looking good. Things were looking good. and that they were going to have a meeting scheduled for October 31st. And now he came out today, maybe the sheet meeting won't happen, causing things to go back down a little bit. Again, we did hit about 113, 114, and it went back down to 112, right? So realistically, are these moves even that great? No, right? We've literally been hovering. If we look back, let's go back to when we hit this 100 point. Pretty much from May until now, we've been hovering between 100 to 115, 120, within that 20% range for the past 4 or 5 months. Okay, so again, it's not that drastic of a change. Again, the biggest hit things here have been those freaking alts. Alts have definitely been where it's going. Here's another tweet just recently, again, about an hour ago. Also, Trump-Putin meeting canceled after Russia insists goal to conquer Ukraine has not changed. So again, all these little news events are causing a lot of uproar. They're causing a lot of movement and overall a lot of uncertainty, right? That's the biggest thing to cause a lot of commotion in the market is when things are uncertain. And currently there's just so many things that aren't resolved that are all kind of loose ends. And unfortunately, the honest truth is that a lot of these things probably won't be tied up even potentially before the end of this year. Okay, so we're going to have to wait to see what happens. Maybe things can cool off a bit. Hopefully this meeting with China does happen. That way at least we can kind of get rid of that portion. Hopefully the government does reopen. We can get rid of that portion. And we can slowly see resolutions to at least certain things. Okay, not everything. And again, there's so many conflicts, so many things all going on all at once, right? So it's borderline unprecedented, but that's where a lot of the price action is. So hopefully we do get a little bit more clarity here in the time. But for now, it's time to take advantage of some of these prices. Again, it's up to you on which coins to buy. We're just going to give kind of examples and things I'm not only looking at, but kind of examples of what I'm not looking at, right? So for example, I'm looking for things that haven't necessarily ran yet. Okay, so although BNB has been the hotness this past month and is continuing to be, although again, like everything else, it has retraced. When we look at the all-time chart, that's not something I'm really interested in as far as like looking for even a short-term gain or starting a position now, right? Realistically, again, that time has kind of passed. There are some of these major alts, specifically things in the top 5, top 6, that are kind of to the point where there's probably not going to be a ton of upside from here, right? Anything can happen. Things can get crazy as things go down, but realistically, again, we're playing that game of probabilities, and when I see a chart like this is the all-time chart. I don't see a lot of upside here when there's so much more upside in other coins, right? Another example of this is Solana, right? So again, this is looking at the all-time chart. You can see the previous highs and you can see the current highs here. Although, yes, we have dipped down a bit, and it is one that tends to recover quickly. Again, this is not one that I'm going to buy spot specifically to hold for the remainder of this potential bull market, right? Realistically, there are other plays here, though. Have done things where a lot of the coins I'm into are in the SOL ecosystem. So an easy play has been to buy SOL at the dips, not necessarily to accumulate the SOL, but ride that SOL up and then use that to get into those other coins that probably, in certain cases, haven't ran up at all. In some cases, have gone down, right? That's one play we have been doing these past few months because we know a lot of these, especially the micro caps, which is where a lot of my interest is in lately, a lot of those have not had any movement. And as a matter of fact, a lot of them have gone down even when the rest of the market has gone up, right? In terms of looking at the bigger caps and the mid caps. Okay. Another one that's a pretty crazy chart is just looking at like Zcash, for example. It's been monumental. Again, is this one that I have much interest in holding for a long term? No. Are there plays in the short term though? Sure, right? Because it's been such a crazy runner, right? Again, this dip just less than a week ago on the 16th, it was under $200. Okay, it did go down actually, I think, to 180 something. It's currently 270 something right now. Okay, I think it went as high as, I was about to say it went up to about freaking $300. Okay, so again, that's one of those plays where you can buy, it's hot, and you could flip in a day for a certain profit if that's your game plan. Like for me, for example, I'm adding little bits to my portfolio, especially those smaller cap coins, adding a couple $100 here, a couple $100 to that one. But a lot of my focus is more on these short-term plays, right? Just, again, quick recoveries, something that could potentially recover 30, 40, 50% in just a matter of days, and flipping it, right? If any of you guys got on that crazy dump with that crazy crash, A lot of money to be made in literally minutes. Okay, kind of the same story here. In certain cases, right, I'm not going to invest into anything. It'll be into something that if it doesn't pump as quickly as I'm expecting, I don't mind holding for a longer period of time. Okay, and there's things all over the place. In reality, there's no set list of coins. We're at the point in the market where everybody's going to kind of look like a genius because almost anything's going to run up, at least as far as things in the like top 100 or things that have potential, right? That doesn't mean meme coin number 10,500,000 is going to do anything. No, it's look for the quality, look for games of probability, look for the metas, look for the what's trending, look for the narratives. And chances are, if you're picking the leaders in those spaces or things that could have a good potential, you're probably going to do fairly well, right? The difference being is which ones are going to do extraordinarily well and which ones will do okay, right? Because we're at a point where things may do a 2 to 3x, or we're going to see things do 10 to 15 plus x's, right? And it's going to be a risk to reward. It's looking at different market caps. In reality, it's hard to determine what's going to do what, right? But again, we look at games of probabilities and we look at different things. So again, look at what your strategy is, look at what you're looking at. So in terms of like the bigger alts, again, things in the top 5, so like BNB, Sol, a lot of those have run up massively, not a whole lot of upside. When you go farther down on the risk curve, depending on what you're into, this is where these things look a little bit more appealing, right? And realistically, if our altcoin season plays out, typically it's going to go into these guys first, and then it's going to trickle down the line, eventually down to those smaller mid caps somewhere towards the end whenever this thing peaks, right? Could be sometime in the next 2 months, could be the next 4 to 6 months. We don't know, right? Again, we're looking for deals, we're looking at things that have that potential, right? So AVAX being a good example. Again, it's currently at $20. Last market cycle hit a peak of $135, right? So definitely potential upside there as we could look at the overall market cap. We don't want to look at the prices. So this is where it does get a little bit different, right? Because back then at that peak, it only brought us to about a $30 billion market cap. We're currently at 8.7, right? So easy napkin math. If we do a 4x from here, it brings us up to over 32 billion, which would exceed that market cap, but a 4x would only bring us up to like 80 something dollars. Okay, so do I think a lot of these will break their previous all-time high in terms of price? Some cases probably not, right? Or actually not even some cases, I think many cases. But I think the goal is to break the overall previous market cap, right? So even if AVAX goes above $80, still think that's a win. And again, the potential 4x here, will it, won't it? We don't know, right? But again, it's one that does have traction. It's one that just doesn't have that popularity factor. So that's why it's one that I think has potential, but it's one I'm not personally into. Again, for my mid caps or things in the top 15 to top 20, it's Sol. Sol was my bet on that. That's where I went. I went more in on that play versus having a little bit in Sol, a little bit in AVAX, a little bit in Near, which is what I did initially, but I did revert all back into the higher confidence play. Another one that's done extremely well overall in this past dip, BitTensor. Okay, on that dip, for anybody who did get in, it went down to $183. It did go, again, that's the April dip. Sorry, let's look at the 1 month. It did go down to like 278, right? So under $300. It's currently at 407. Did reach as high as 463. So again, 278 on the 10th, and then 4 days later, 471, right? So for a quick flip, that's not bad, right? This could potentially be even a long-term play because realistically, this is one of more the solid actual like AI plays. AI's been getting a lot of hype, a lot of mentions, a lot of interest. Okay, specifically, BitTensor Tau is very big with Grayscale, with Barry Silbert, Yuma Group. You can look into all of that if you'd like. That's a kind of a big catalyst here. Another one would be like Near, for example. Again, it's down at $2.30. Previous all-time high of about $17 in 2022. Again, they were one of the weird ones last cycle just because they were a newer coin at that time. But if we look at the market cap, again, we're currently at 2.9 billion. Previous peak was about 11.3. Okay, so Give or take a 4x to reach up to there, so $8 to $10 I think is something realistic. Again, there's another one on the AI play. Can it do well? Maybe, maybe not. Again, the coins I'm mentioning, not necessarily saying coins to get into, and these are the best. We're just kind of giving examples of what to look for, and those number time frames are kind of where you want to be at in terms of the ranking, right? So things in the 10 to 20, whether it's AVAX, whether it's something like Sui. Sui's another extremely popular one. Whatever it may be, right? You want to kind of look in those time frames, look in those rankings, kind of make your bets here, right? There's still definitely opportunity, whether it's AI plays, whether it's DeFi plays, whether it's whatever. There's opportunities all over the place, right? Depending on the ecosystem you're into. That's why I do highly recommend getting into those different ecosystems. Try them out. Are you a big fan of Base? Like if you're big on Base, you're big on ETH Layer 2s, Aerodrome is definitely one to consider just because that's the main DEX on Base. So Base is made extremely easy. A lot of people want to get into it. Very similar to like Solana in that sense from the usability standpoint, right? They do make it extremely easy for newbies to come in and degen on memes, on base memes, etc., etc. Aerodrome is one that will take advantage of those things, so that we kind of get exposure at least until a base coin comes out, which they've kind of essentially basically almost confirmed, right? But when it's going to come out, probably way down the line, probably after all this anyways. If you're big into DPIN, I mean, Helium's under freaking $2. A lot of big news came out with them with their burns and such. We'll probably do a DPIN update video talking about it because it's extremely bullish, the news that came out. But this is another one. Again, currently it's at a $360 million market cap. Previous high in terms of market cap was $5.38 billion. Risk to reward, right? So you got to look at different things, look at the opportunities, because some of them are right there, right? Which ones will do well, we don't know, right? In reality, it can have all the best things in the world, can have the most utility, brings on-chain revenue, yada, yada, yada. Sometimes in terms of price action, it doesn't mean a whole lot, right? But at this point, you're looking at risk to reward. In my opinion, when I see charts like this, and this is the leader in the space, and there's a lot of things to be bullish on, and they've been lately garnering institutional interest, for me, the risk to reward is extremely appealing, right? Especially when you look at in terms of market cap, like this is a snapshot from CoinMarketCap. This is a historical snapshot from the 2021 peak, right? We're looking at market caps and kind of where their rankings were. Okay, so at this point, a $300 million market cap was getting you into like the high 200s. Okay, so like 350 was number 263. A majority of these coins, they were all like shit coins that I've never even really heard of. I don't even remember the ones back then. It just kind of shows you the extent of how high things can go, right? Like Kyber Network, that's an old one. Orbit Chain, Joe, oh, that's from AVAX. KOK, no idea what that is. TrueFi, no idea. Glitzcoin, no idea. Sapphire, no idea. Remark, no idea. Stratus, Venus BTC. Again, a lot of these were just complete shit coins, but they pumped up to these market caps in the peak of the bull. Okay, so just to give you an idea of what can potentially happen with some of these. Okay, especially some of these smaller ones that do have potential, right? So like for me, my interest is with a lot of these smaller degen plays is with DPIN, right? Just because realistically, a lot of these are extremely undervalued in my opinion. They do have potential, although that doesn't mean it's going to translate into positive price action. Like yes, they may bring in revenue, they may do all these wonderful things. It doesn't mean it's going to translate into that price action. But if it does, there is extreme potential. Okay, so like for example, GeoNet, their whole market cap right now currently, $42 million. Okay, for them to reach these type of levels, again, these are the market caps from the previous all-time high. Okay, if we're factoring in that the market cap is going to 1.5, 2x, 3x, kind of factor that in also. Okay, so I can definitely see GeoNet breaking into the top 300. Potentially, it's not out of the question for them to go to $250 million market cap, $300 million, $500 million isn't even that difficult, right? So let's say a $500 million market cap, bring it into like the 240s, right? Is that doable? I believe so, right? And at that point, it's a pretty high return from here, right? So is it going to happen? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't get the traction we're expecting, only does a 2 or 3x, right? Is that really that big of a loss? It sounds kind of crazy. Reality crying about only a 3x gain, that would still be happy with that. But with the potential of having a 5, 7, potentially 10x gain from here, right? So this is where you're looking at risk reward levels. And this is where more of my interest tends to be at currently, right? Just because realistically, some of these, it's almost a no-brainer to even just toss a couple $100 in, right? Another one being Aletheum, which just continues to freaking pulverize. I did add more at the 16, 17 cent level. For me to add more, though, I needed to go to single digits from here just because, again, my bag is pretty packed. But if it does go down to single digits, I will be buying more. Okay, obviously, price action has been horrible. But this is where you have to ask yourself is what has changed fundamentally since these price points? Okay, have things gotten worse? Did they have an exploit? Did something bad happen? No, it's just crappy price action. Okay, so is the potential that these price points reach again? Maybe, maybe not. But again, when this thing's only a $16 million market cap, do I see a potential to reach 100 million, 150 million? Sure. Even at that point, that's nearly a 10x. Even if it does take off and gets more traction or just returns back to some of the previous highs, that's a big gain potentially, right? Is it going to happen? No. Maybe it just continues to bleed. Maybe it goes to 5 cents and 2.5 cents and just kind of dies, right? There's also that possibility, but it's risk to reward, right? At this point, realistically, you got to factor in if there's the potential for this thing to go back up to $1, $1.50, $2, $3. Is it really that big of a difference whether you get in at 13 cents or 16 cents or 20 cents or even 25 cents or even 30 cents? If there's a potential for this thing to go to like $2, $2.50, right? It's the same argument we were making back when BTC was dropping. Okay, when it was at like that 16, 17,000 level, those were the comments we were making even in that video at that time. Okay, the risk to reward is excellent. If at that time we thought there was potential in the bull market for now, for it to hit 100 grand, was it really going to make that much of a difference whether you got in at BTC at 17 grand or 16 grand or 15 grand or even 18 grand or even 20 grand when the potential for 100 grand has been there? Not really, right? You're going to be kicking yourself more for not taking that potential opportunity, even if it's not that much capital, even if it's just a small amount. Again, for something that has that extreme potential, to me, even if you have no exposure to ALF, a couple $100, it's like, why not? Right? So again, to each their own. You got to do what makes the most sense to you. But when I see prices like this, potential like this, even if it doesn't pan out, even if it goes to zero, for me, it's worth a shot at certain points, right? So again, not petitioning to go into ALF or to Geode or any of these other smaller market cap coins. But again, when we look at these price levels, again, with the lithium, look at the all-time chart, it's back to like all-time lows, right? It's back to like the old prices back in like 2023. Okay, and same thing with GeoNet. It's a good support price. We can clearly see that line there. Natix being another one. Again, in the DePIN world, again, only a $23 million market cap. This is, again, if you look at the line here, these are all-time lows. Okay, it just consistently goes down to these points. Again, can it go lower? Yeah, it can definitely go another 50% from here. It can go down another 70%. But the potential upside is where you have to consider, right? So it's a risk to reward. Again, not advocating for any of these coins. You got to look at what you're into because, again, if things go our way, if things happen, anything is going to look good, right? The differentiation is going to be between what mega pumps and what does kind of okay, right? And at that point, it's up to you to kind of choose that, look at different sectors because in reality, anything in the top 500 has potential to pump, right? If you're looking at shitcoin number, again, 10 million something, that's a whole different story. But look for quality, look for things that are potentially higher confidence in. Again, if it's a bigger bag, definitely wants to be a higher confidence play. If it's something speculative, like these I call my little 1%ers, if they pan out, cool. If they don't, cool, because some of them won't, right? Some of them will go to zero. Some of the ones even I'm into have gone to zero. It's going to happen, right? But that's why you make them a small portion of the portfolio, assess your risk, kind of go from there though. But there are still a lot of opportunities here. Again, it's totally up to you to determine if it is an opportunity. For some of you guys, I know a lot of you guys believe this is all over. For me, to me, there's still time. When it's going to top, though, we don't know. We'll do another video kind of discussing things. But right now, it's opportunity, bros. I get it. Sentiment is horrible. It is what it is. But, I mean, this is when there's opportunity, where we're seeing charts like this, when we're looking at bear market lows here for a lot of these coins. And again, not even just the ones I mentioned, like just all over the place. Again, there's kind of no bad plays. Even just doing straight BTC, whatever it is, there's still opportunity here. Okay? Let me know in the comments, guys. What do you guys think? And what are you guys doing? What is your guys' perception? Do you guys think we fully topped still? Do you think there's still some gas left in the tank? Do you think we're going to have one more run? Let me know in the comments, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I'm out.